Church of the East, Chapter 11, the Eastern Church's lasting influence. As a result of the Muslims, the Mongols, and Tamerlane, the extermination of Christianity from Central and Northern Asia was so complete that hardly any trace remains other than the tombstones and the ruins of many cities, which is why we believed that, a lot of us would say that there's never been Christianity over there. China, Japan, Burma, and other countries are different. In those countries, there still remain echoes of Christian teaching and relics of Christian customs, which reflect the teaching of the early missionaries from the Church of the East. As previously stated, the historian Saki claims that China, around 618 to 845, was under strong Christian influence, and that the teachings of the Church of the East had penetrated all of Chinese literature. The Edict of AD 845 ordered the suppression of the Church of the East, Buddhism, and Islam, checked the progress of Christianity. Only in the 13th century did the Church of the East recover its previous proportions. Then, remember, the Ming Dynasty came to power in the 14th century, and they nearly completely suppressed the Christians. However, the Christian influence continued even then. Saki thinks that the descendants of those who did not join the Muslims are probably members of the Secret Society or Pill of Immortality Society. He thinks this group is Christian in character. The founder, Liu Yan, was born in AD 755, and he called himself the son of the essence of the universe, and claimed that he received the truth from the first and greatest of the 8 immortals who lived about 7 centuries before him. Liu Yan does not name the greatest of the immortals, but calls him such titles as the warning bell which does not trust physical force, the quiet logos, the king of the sons of God, the first teacher of the true doctrine of immortality, and teacher from above. These names seem close to the names of Christ, and Jesus of Nazareth was the only major teacher in the world about 7 centuries before the birth of Liu Yan. So how did Liu Yan get these doctrines? According to the Changhua monument, that was in chapter 7, the Chinese emperor in Changhua in AD 635 received the missionaries of the Church of the East. Liu Yan, born a little more than a century later, lived near Changhua, so he had an opportunity to get to know these Western doctrines. Temples to Liu Yan are all over North and Central China. Much of their use is for healing and superhuman guidance. The belief system is also associated with the Buddhist goddess of mercy. Prayers used to worship this goddess are often almost the same as Christian prayers. The second volume of Liu Yan's complete works mention how he changed water into wine, how he healed the sick and wounded, how he cured a poor man who suffered from paralysis, how the blind received sight by his touch. The liturgy of the Shan Tan Chao resembles that of the Eastern Church. Several leaders, and so what they're saying is that some of what this was appears to have been morphed from Christianity. In Japan, the teachings of the Amida sect and the Pure Land School are also traceable to traditions of the Church of the East. According to these groups, Amida is without beginning and without end, all love, wisdom, benevolence, and power. He appeared in various forms among men, always with the intention to bring salvation to mankind. In his last incarnation, he vowed that should the perfect consummation of Buddhism be in his power, he would not accept deliverance unless it would also mean the salvation of man. The fatal defect in the whole system is the absence of any reference to the cross of Christ, to the blood of atonement, or to the resurrection of the Lord. The preaching of the cross is still foolishness to the learned of this world, but to those who are being saved, it is the power of God unto salvation. And then here's some other places that one can find evidence of Christian influence, and it's got a few other examples, and it says, what was it that prepared the way for the missionaries? It was their tradition of a Father God who showed favor to them, in whom they believed, of a people once great because of righteousness, of a time when the Father God created the first human pair, set them in the garden, and talked with them as they were friends and children. Because it says that, in the last century, just in this last century, missionaries have been going over there, and the people have been very receptive to Christ, and they're saying that the traditions of the idea of Christianity are probably why those missionaries have had some success. The Karens also had stories of tragedy of the serpent. There's, the fall of Eden, and there's all these other examples of how Christianity had probably permeated into the East. All of these traditions must have come from the missionaries of the Church of the East, who taught them of creation, the fall of man, and the interruption in the fellowship which formerly existed between man and God. The traveler Cosmas, in his Christian topography, tells that missionaries had penetrated to Burma and Thailand before the 6th century AD, and that there were Christian churches in those countries that early date. These examples attest to the widespread influence, even in its byproducts, of that wonderful Church of the East when at the zenith of its missionary activity. Chapter 11.